Shmuel, container ship industry, as Mr. Oza had put it, is one of the industries which altogether made 230 billion in profits. You've had an exceptional few years, a great ride, but now congestion has retreated. The rates have normalized. In fact, they've gone back to pre-COVID levels. As one of the key container ship operators and owners, what is your near and medium-term outlook for the industry?
Thank you for having me, Pallavi. Like after every good party, there is the hangover, and I think we are now in the start of the hangover, and the way it looks, it's going to last for 12, 24 months. There was huge order book. We can take some of the blame, but everyone ordered, and with a 30% order book and a receding long-haul trade, we see both in Asia, Europe, and on the Trans-Pacific, not really increases, actually decreases in the trade. So it's very hard to be optimistic.
Thank you. We've seen nations respond to disruption caused by pandemic. Supply chain resilience had been built in. Also, companies are looking at nearshoring so as to be able to future-proof their production and supply dynamics. You can see companies prioritizing resilience over efficiency. And critically, the most popular Japanese just-in-time era is over. Of course, these could be early innings, but it does appear that a lot of companies are looking to move out at least part of their operations out from China and into South or Southeast Asia. Now, Asia being the largest contributor to global demand, how do you see this trade pattern emerge and adjust while the new world settles in?
When you look at the intra-Asia trade in general, and maybe afterwards I'll go into the different trades, because intra-Asia is not really one trade, it's multiple trades. But overall, it's been quite positive. If you look at the long-haul trades, Northeast Asia into the Middle East and India, there is growth, even good growth. If you look at the trade like India into the Middle East, it's been very, very strong. And when you talk to people in these countries, mainly in India and in the Middle East, they are extremely optimistic on volumes. And this is the problem, that volumes will grow, and probably on this trade pretty substantially. The issue is what happened with the cascading effect. Services are suspended on the long haul. And when you look, where can you put them? So where can you put a 12,000 or a 15,000 TEU vessel if you want to idle her? So either you idle her, or you deploy her on a long-haul intra-Asia line. So you put her China into the Middle East and China into the west coast of India. And this is where we are seeing a very interesting phenomena. So if there are no ad hoc vessels or nobody is throwing a ship into the market in a week or two, we can see rates going up. The minute that people are put, and then you see vessels coming into the trade, and then the rates are going down. And you're talking going down and up between something like $1,000 or more to $600 in a couple of weeks, up and down. And this will persist, and it will keep, I think, the people playing in the intra-Asia or trading the intra-Asia seeing good growth, but very limited profits.
Thanks. Talking about the fleet for Express, Andrew just mentioned that you have gone from a 20 fleet operator. Of course, you were in principle largely chartering vessels to a very big ship owner now, 50 vessels and 20 more on order. So can you elaborate a little more on your fleet strategy?
Yeah, so we operate more than 100 vessels. Initially, we owned about 20 in 2016, and we have grown this fleet. It reached at the peak about 60 vessels, and I would split our strategy into a strategy and tactic. So initially in 20 and 21, in the beginning of 21, we were simply opportunistic. We thought there was a huge discrepancy between the S&P market and the charter market, where you could buy a vessel and pay her down in 2-3 years. It was mainly driven by banks not believing the market and just wanting to get rid of assets that they own, either own directly or own them, that the owners still own them, but it was actually controlled by the banks. And I think that was an incredible opportunity. We bought a big number of vessels, which actually most of them were terrible vessels if we talked about the efficiency, but they were very good to own during the peak. We have sold quite a bit of them. We've sold 17 vessels over the past 12 months, all of them inefficient vessels that we thought we had no idea how we will make their CII work and how they will how they will be operationally efficient in the long term. On the strategic side, we saw that, and now I'm talking about end of 2020, so not today, there were a few groups of vessel sizes where there were no new orders. If you look at the 7,000 TEU vessels, at the 3,000 TEU vessels, and European feeders, actually there were hardly any orders. There were 0 orders between 4,000 TEUs and 12,000 TEU vessels, and there were less than a handful of European feeders on order. The average age of the European feeder when we started to think about new orders was about 16 years. I think now it's about 17 or 18 years old. And this drove us, because we are strong believer in the change, in the regulation change, due to the environmental effects of the CO2, it drove us to gear our fleet to be efficient. And this is how we got to the fleet. So today we altogether ordered more than 40 vessels. We already got deliveries of some, and we are expected to get deliveries of more than 20 vessels by 2026.
Yes, thank you. And this kind of, your fleet strategy also, like you were mentioning, it was a big part for decarbonizing and, making your vessels more efficient. So we talk about decarbonization just before this, and Professor Lin Lu mentioned that it's not an easy task to decarbonize. So this is mentioned to be a decisive decade. The next 2-3 years are most critical. Everyone needs to act now. Christina mentioned act now was her summary. XFL has ordered 14 ultra-modern dual-fuel container ships, which will operate on both conventional fuel and methanol, green methanol. Now, the challenge here is that picking a wrong fuel today could put you in a serious competitive disadvantage tomorrow. Now, given that there are so many choices on the new fuel technology, how has your investment decision come about in terms of investments in vessels for green methanol?
We picked green methanol. I don't want to take too much credit because it wasn't that complicated, to be honest. We ordered the vessels, I think in October or November 2021, and we need to think what was there. There were very few options. Either you order a single fuel vessel burning fuel oil, or you order a dual fuel vessel. And there were actually 2 options. There was the LNG option, and Maersk just ordered the first dual fuel methanol, I think in August or September, so a couple of months before. We wanted a European feeder, which was small. It had LOA restrictions, and we needed good intake on 45s. So LNG takes up a lot of space because of the fuel storage. Because it has to be pressurized, it takes more space. Methanol doesn't have these restrictions. And we were adamant that we need to have the vessels future-proofed. And this is why we picked methanol, because the other real option to have the vessels we wanted was to go with a single fuel. To say that we are confident that methanol will be the fuel of the future, no. But we had to make a decision, and that was the best decision we thought at the time. I personally still think that methanol has a good chance on the intra-regional trades, especially in condensed population places like Europe, to have a good chance to fight ammonia once it comes, even though I assume, like everyone says, that ammonia will be cheaper, but safety issues might drive usage of ammonia in certain trades.
And what is the reduction in emission that you have quantified by using green methanol fueled container ships?
So currently, our offtake agreement will drive a reduction of 65 to 70% of emissions in the main engine. Altogether, I apologize, I don't remember exactly the number, but it is more than 50. It is something like 50 to 55%, because our generators still will burn gas oil.
Okay. And what is the cost difference for operating these vessels?
In our current offtake agreement, roughly for a unit of energy, it is 3 times more expensive to use to burn methanol at 65 to 70% decrease. So it's not 100%. To do it at 100%, we are talking about 5 times, and there is very, very limited availability. So we took the best that we could, because you still need a quantity. We need to operate services. We don't just buy methanol to say that we are burning it. So in order to have a sustainable service that will be able to run on green methanol, we needed the vendors to commit on quantities. So this is 65 to 70%.
Wow, that's a big jump in operating cost.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think? How can government, let's say, encourage usage of fuels? Or do you have any ideas in terms of how do you encourage players to adopt green energy?
So I think we are going to be a bit of a guinea pig, because we are actually going to be the first ones Maersk are operating their vessel as their own feeder. So they are selling it as an add-on to their long-haul services, and they serve not on a regular service currently, at least. We plan to operate 2 vessels in an intra-European trade, most probably Rotterdam into Finland. We plan to start the first vessel, if all goes well, will arrive Europe beginning of Q2 2024, and the second vessel will arrive end Q2, beginning Q3, and then we will be able to run a service Rotterdam into Finland, and it will be a test case to see, because now there is a product, there will be a product, and we will see who will pay for it. When we are talking about 3 times the cost of energy unit, we are talking about, for us, about a 30% increase in slot cost, which is actually what is our base cost and how we price our product, services. And if you calculate it for clients, if you calculate this to a logistic manager or a procurement manager, so they need to pay something like 30% more. That's huge, right? But if you calculate it on the value of the commodity, it is anywhere very, very low single digits in the commodity value if you pass $10,000 of commodity. And this is the big question. Will consumers be willing to pay? Because if consumers will not be willing to pay, all of this will fail. I think we as an industry, it's very important to explain to everyone that I don't see how in the next 10, 15 years shipping will be cheaper or same cost using green fuels. I think we are lying to ourselves and we are lying to our clients if we are saying it. So it's very important to understand that end of the day, the consumer, which is you and I, will need to pay for it.
Well, the earlier panel did talk about everyone working together. So all the best with your dual fuel container ships. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Pallavi.